Thank you.
Corey is a state rep from Stanford District
145.
145, and I had the pleasure of knocking on some doors with Corey at
That's
one
right.
point
That's right.
a few years ago. That was really fun.
Trevor and I got to know each other very well and lost a lot of pounds walking
Oh my
across
God,
that
it was
district.
so hot. And you were the one that kind of taught me how to like talk to rings.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah, that, and I probably need a refresher in that now that we talk about that.
You were like, just be sure, walk up to the door. If nobody's answering, you can speak to the ring, but also just be careful about what you're saying because the rings are listening.
They
So
pick
that
up
was
everything.
so yeah, I just that was an interesting. But anyway, overall, I had the most wonderful experience running for state senate. Corey, you're a big supporter of mine. I really appreciated it. So I want to kind of roll back the tape. I think it was mid-August
Yeah.
when you did something which was kind and supportive to your constituency. You put a social media post up, and it caused a great deal of problems in your life for your entire family.
Right.
Talk to me about what happened then.
It's almost impossible to constantly relive it, and I don't. What My heart goes out to all of the other elected officials and other public servants across the country who are dealing with the same thing because it is emotionally and mentally and physically draining. And so we had heard reports of ICE in my district, and I had simply followed suit of a lot of other folks in the area who were also elected officials warning their constituents. And I put online on Instagram and on Facebook that ICE was in the district and that we're just encouraging people to remain safe, to remain vigilant. I did use the word vigilant, but I meant it in a sense to just be on guard, just to know what's happening with your surroundings. And I also encourage people to look out to local organizations who could provide resources and to just look out for your neighbors. Well, that was picked up by Libs of TikTok, and my the atrocious and vile threats that had ensued from that one post and from them reposting it. They claim that I had doxed ICE agents, which I never did. And what initially happened over the next 2 days were a litany of death threats and harassing calls and emails. Many folks then started to call for my arrest with the Department of Justice and with Department of Homeland Security. And then ICE had reshared the post on their official federal government page. And so it was just my photo. And clearly, if you read the post of what I posted, it does not dox anyone. It was very unfortunate, very unfortunate.
Well, that is incredibly, incredibly terrorizing for you, for your family. I believe even your mom or grandma in the South was.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we should clarify that Libs of TikTok is not actually a liberal group.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Yes.
Just in case anybody
Thank
doesn't
you.
know.
That was, by the way, Lisa Hannick, our executive producer, and she's thinking that through this stuff all the time. So, absolutely good point. Libs of TikTok is not.
That's correct.
They're all about owning the libs,
That's
right?
right.
But back to the real trauma of your entire family having to cope with the fact that you're being threatened for your lives, for your other family members. I believe your fiance at the time, you're now married,
Yeah.
was also receiving death threats. So this is an incredible problem in our society right now. We just had Charlie Kirk assassinated. Another story which doesn't seem to be coming up in the headlines around here, which is shocking to me, is a judge in South Carolina who worked to disagree with the Trump administration of sharing voter rolls, voter information. Her house was probably firebombed. We don't know yet what all the details are. She was out walking her dog. Her husband and her son were inside. Both had to jump out windows and apparently are in critical condition right now. So what we've got is this intense political violence that's bubbling up and is very scary. So I don't know how you stay brave.
Yeah. I will honestly say the women in my life are probably top of mind in terms of my remaining brave and also my faith in God. Two things that I've never wavered from. And when I was so worried about my grandmothers and I was obviously worried about my now wife, the biggest thing for me was, should I continue on with this work? And how can I keep them safe? And almost unequivocally, it was unanimous that you have to continue with this work because so many people have fought for you to have the opportunity to serve. And many people are counting on you
Yes.
to continue to serve. And so I think that was resounding in their resolve, certainly in terms of their support. But for any elected official, whether they're Republicans or Democrats,
Exactly.
I worry about all of our children, all of our loved ones, all of our family members being targets for something they never signed up for.
So thank you for your service. And that appreciation comes with a much greater amount of now there's true danger personally for yourself and your family. But what you're doing is showing up every day to support and make sure that Connecticut families on from cradle to grave that people are getting the support and services and safe lifestyles that we feel kind of accustomed to here.
Right. And I will tell you, I was also hurt for the people around me who had to be in the crosshairs of this situation. And, Senator Gary Winfield, Representative Lenny Cavros DeGraw, they were unequivocal in their support, as was Lieutenant Governor Susan Weisswitz and Attorney General William Tong always checked in. But I thought what was really interesting was I was not as bothered. I guess I was shaken, but not as moved by some of the things that people had said. One person had sent a message saying that I have lots of black people in my family tree. In fact, they're hanging out there right now, and I've got room for one more. Another person said that because of this, we should start a race war, and starting with me. Someone had called my aide and left a voicemail saying, and they stopped one bit short of saying that he would do it, but he said there were other great Americans who would lynch me. And so,
Corey.
having to relive that and think about just where we are politically in this country, it's very tough.
It's really tough. And is there a part of you that could forgive that?
Oh, I have to. My faith teaches me to forgive it. But I think what I want to do is just because I forgive it does not mean that it should be the norm of how we live and how we build a world for future generations.
Absolutely.
And so that is, I think, inspired me to try to find more civility, which I've always worked across the aisle with my colleagues. Try to, remind them of that civility as we move forward, but also make this profession a more honorable profession for people to feel safe in doing. Because I can tell you so many people that I know that are in elected office, either here or across the country, are considering not running again because of the state of the world that we're in right now.
Oh, I've got family members saying, please do not run again. I've heard that personally. I totally understand. So Corey, I just, just big hugs to you and your wife and your family members who have that faith in God, but also in your ability to serve and also to approach this with grace.
Thank you.
And resolve and strength and bravery. And thank you for talking us through that. And for anybody out there listening and thinking, God, I'm so angry I could kill somebody, please think this through. And I'm a therapist, so I believe you need to go talk to somebody. Maybe it's a leader of your faith, a rabbi, or I don't, whoever it is that can walk you through and get you past a violent and hateful stuff.
Well, and I also think in this country, we have a power to eliminate hate. We have a power to eliminate, the course that's being chartered that most people in America might feel is the wrong course. Other people might feel it's the right course. Well, that power is our vote. So if you are angry, take it out in the ballot box. Don't take it out anywhere else. But everyone deserves to have that right to do that.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And just as a reminder, our municipal elections are coming up in a very short period of time. So early voting starts on October 20th. And your vote in the municipal elections really directly impact you, your schools, your neighborhoods, your parks, your services. So go vote. And by the way, Democrats tend to vote 10% less than registered Republicans and unaffiliated. So I'm pleading with you. Everybody go vote. Please vote. So important. So, Corey, you're starting up a new legislative session coming up.
Yes.
Talk to me about your priorities as you get going in that 26 session.
I think it's going to be it's going to be a shorter session, so I think it's going to go by rather quickly. I am a vice chair of the Appropriations Committee, and I'm also the House chair on children. And so, what's really important to me right now is, we made some great strides with regard to early childhood education in our state. I'm more focused right now as we move forward. Obviously, still focused on those things, but focused on pocketbook issues. When it comes to education, I've always thought of the bookend issues that we should be focusing on. One is obviously ECE, the other being higher education. Connecticut.
When you say ECE, can you tell the listeners?
Early childhood education.
Good.
And look, I mean, if we spend more money, which we're planning to do on early childhood education, which is 90% of the brain development, we will absolutely see that investment return in many dividends on the back end of that. Also, when we talk about higher education, I'm very concerned about the state of student loan debt in this country. Connecticut holds the 5th highest amount of student loan debt in the country. Some $22 billion held across 500,000 plus borrowers in our state.
Whoa, I
And-
did not know that.
Oh, yeah. And most of the payments, most people face monthly payments around anywhere between $900 to about $1,300, $1,400 a month.
Sure.
And so what we have now, which is just a policy disagreement, obviously, with many of our Republican colleagues or even with the federal government, is that there needs to be some kind of relief for borrowers. And we've done that in the state with the student loan reimbursement program that I worked on and I authored with other representatives and colleagues, especially some from the Republican side, and obviously Representatives Turco and Sanchez and Cavros DeGraw. We want to get people doing community service, paying off their debt, and then we reimburse them for their loan if they're staying here in the state of Connecticut. And that's been a great program, has met a lot of great response.
That is fantastic. I love that. And those are good, solid solutions to real problems for everyone. And this is what our legislators do.
Right.
You're literally working through problems, looking to solve the problems. And that sort of thought process out there that every public official is corrupt and doesn't really care and just in it for themselves. I'm going to point out that you guys are incredible. You work hard, and now you're working not only hard for the people, but you're now under threat.
Yeah, and to bring some levity to the situation, when I got into politics a couple of years ago, when I was first elected, someone had said to me, he was telling me a story about a guy that stopped him at a gas station and said, all of you politicians are corrupt. You're just getting rich off this job, and you answered us, and you just going off at this guy. And the elected official said, "Do you know how much money I make?" And the guy said, "No, I want you to tell me," in a very indignant way. And he says, the elected official replies, $28,000 a year. There's a bit of silence, and the man says, "You're an idiot." And so, you really do this for the heart of people.
Oh my gosh. It's true. It's true. You really do not get paid enough. It's ridiculous the amount of hours you have to put in.
That's right.
And it's not just the hours that you're there in the state capitol. You are out talking to
Right.
people
Right.
day in and day out and really caring and listening to those stories. So this is another piece of it, which is if you broke it down hourly, I don't think you're getting paid more than $4 an hour.
Well, I think we did get a raise
Oh, you
first
did?
in 30 years or 25 years
Really?
or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But, I still say this to say, however, this job is really public led, right? Everything that we do for those that we serve. And there are very few ways that it can be self-serving for any individual person. My other big concern is poverty. And this state, it has a real issue with poverty. It's on the rise. If you look at food insecurity, if you look at housing instability, and the lack of housing options in our state, obviously what you see happening with the cost of childcare and student loans, even with electricity, food.
I don't know how young people afford it. I
Yeah.
know my son's girlfriend has a $1,300
Yeah.
a month student loan.
Yeah.
They don't have kids. I don't know how you live.
You don't.
How do you pay your rent?
You don't. It's a lot of choosing.
Crazy.
And between can we do this and can we not do that, and it also determines whether or not families or young couples are going to start families,
Yeah.
and that's really challenging.
Very
too.
true.
Yeah.
Very true. So what you're doing is so important. I love that you're really thinking about how to support families and thinking about food insecurity. One of the things that I noticed is the Trump administration stopped reporting on food insecurity. Do we have reports here in the state of Connecticut that are reliable?
We do have a lot of reports here in the state of Connecticut. In fact, the Commission on Women and Children and Equity at the state, they put out a food insecurity report every year. And, it's gone up year over year. I think over the last 2 years alone, food insecurity has risen at least 14% in our state.
Wow.
And so as it continues to grow, we need more places like Person to Person and Food Share and other food providers to continue to help people. Because look, I do pretty well for myself outside the legislature. Many of us do. We have to be working legislators.
You have 2 jobs.
Yes, we do.
Right, Corey?
That's right. 2 jobs. 3, and I have a honey-do list I have not accomplished at all this week. So I might be down to 2 again. But I say all of this to say, we're all one paycheck away from being food insecure. In fact, Forbes magazine did a story last year that showed that nearly 53% of people who make over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paychecks.
Crazy. That seems to me to be a lot of money, but it really isn't,
Yeah.
especially in a state like ours,
That's
which
right.
is truly, truly expensive. I happened to be able to travel down to South Carolina this past week. Things are just less expensive there.
Yeah.
Everything.
But the quality of life
That's
is far different there. Our schools are better. Our roads are better. And
Healthcare.
So healthcare,
Big
much
difference.
better.
Yep.
And the access to it for all people, obviously better. And regardless of where folks might stand on issues like immigration or such as, the economy, it is a much better economy for women. It's a much better economy for working immigrants and a safer place for immigrants in this state, even with the challenges that we still face.
So I'm going to kind of touch upon your chair of the Appropriations Committee, or
Vice
your,
chair.
Vice chair.
Yeah.
Very good. Kathy Austin, right?
Yes.
Still, yeah. So what are your guys' priorities this year? Is it going to? I know you really did a lot for childcare. Any other areas like mental health? I know one of our guests, Dita Bhargava, was talking about overdose treatment centers. Right. Are we going to be able to get some of those in our state? I know we need to pass legislation, but what are we doing about that?
Well, Kathy Austin and Tony Walker are probably they could write a budget in their sleep with their eyes closed. In fact, I think they probably have tried and successfully have gotten it passed. But in working alongside the both of them, learning about our $56.5 billion budget, nearly $19 billion of that budget comes from the federal government. So I'm really concerned. It may be a little bit more and a little bit less, but it's more than a quarter of which that comes from there. My real focus in this next session for us as appropriations leadership members is that we focus on trying to fill the gaps of what the federal government is pulling back on. So that's Medicaid, Medicare. That's going to be Husky. It's going to be all of the things in terms of education funding, in terms of housing. Like, we have to fill that gap for the folks here. And that's why the state government is so important.
So appropriations, and because I just threw that out, and I'm not sure that listeners, by the way, if you're just tuning in, I am Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends. I'm sitting with Corey Paris, our state rep, one of them from Stanford, 145, I believe, and we're discussing appropriations. So what is the job of the Appropriations Committee?
The Appropriations Committee, in lamest terms, is the cash register. They are the ones that give out the money, and they build the budget. And the Finance Committee, on the flip side of that, determines how we raise revenue and money in our state. And so they obviously work very closely together, but have very different uses for their work.
So we are facing major issues right now. As I mentioned in the earlier part of the show, that Russell Vought, our Office of OMB management. This is on the federal level.
Yes.
Cut something like $5.9 billion out of our Green New Deal, or whatever he's called, a green scam, whatever it was. But anyway, that really impacts companies right here. Plus all the Medicaid, education costs, et cetera. What are we going to do to fill those gaps? Are we going to be able to? Are we making enough money in our or investment funds? Eric Russell, like, do we have the bandwidth to really help this out?
Well, and I think many of my colleagues would argue we have the bandwidth. And look, we have a special session that we're still trying to work out the details around that can address some of these issues, including housing and including behavioral and mental health support for our public workers, such as firefighters and our public safety workers. But the other thing is this: we have a very healthy rainy day fund. We are paying down our pension debt obligations year over year at historic levels. We have found quite a bit of money over the
It's
last
incredible.
over the last three reporting cycles. Hundreds of millions of dollars that could go to some of these things.
Yeah.
I think it will be upon the legislature, both sides, and certainly both chambers of the legislature, to work with the governor's office to try to figure out solutions that can continue to find relief for Connecticut residents.
And to give credit where credit is due, Lamont has done a great job paying down some of this debt, pension debt. It's still incredibly high relative to other states, but we've taken, I think, $9 billion off the table, which saves something like $600-900 million a year in interest payments that we can now do directly to childcare and all these other things that we can use that money for. So what a cool job, appropriations, a cash register.
It's a very cool job, and to have that role as vice chair, in addition to being chair of the Children's Committee, it is it's an opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I'm just so happy. And I remember seeing Beth Bly, who did that initial blue ribbon study on children's development, why it is so important to invest in the early stages of a child's life and what that does for brain development, and that's lifelong. So in this past session, you guys, how much is that bill for? How much are you dedicating?
It was a couple $100 million, but to keep it going, we need about $5 billion. And look, New Mexico has made childcare completely free in their state. Imagine free. Imagine all of the parents that will be enabled to go back to work because of this, and it's going to do wonders for their economy. Now they have many reserves of oil and uranium in their state.
Interesting.
So they have natural
we have
resources.
Water.
We have water.
We have lots of water here in Connecticut.
So I think if we start just building water neighborhoods on the Long Island Sound, we might be able to be into something. But we have an obligation, and I agree with the governor. We have an obligation, obviously, to pay down our debts, but we have a further, more serious obligation to provide for Connecticut families to ensure that they are going to have a head start in making life better for the next generation to come after.
I love that. Now, I know you were part of the Baby Bonds initiative.
Well, I supported it as a member of the legislature, of course, yes.
Yeah. So talk to people a little bit about that, too, because it's yet another great idea.
Well, it is. I don't speak about it as eloquently as, say, the former treasurer, Sean Wooden, or Treasurer Eric Russell talks about it, and it's obviously really important to them. But I think you look at an initiative like Baby Bonds, and you look at other things like childcare, there are so many things that we can offer from the onset of the start of a child's life that could be both beneficial to their families and to them. But when the children in other households and the parents in other households are doing well, it makes a difference for you as an individual yourself. You do better when others are doing better.
That's such a good point, and I don't believe a lot of people really hear that or understand that. So would you repeat that, Corey? Because it's a very important point.
A rising tide lifts all boats. And here in the state of Connecticut, when all of our kids have access to quality education, no matter whether it's at the early childhood level or K through 12 or in higher education, we all do better because of that. The value of our homes go up. Our hospital systems are stronger. Our roads are better. So we have an obligation to invest not just in paying down our debts, but we have an obligation with investing into every family, whether they live in the suburbs and the urban cities, if they live in the rural areas of our state. Everyone deserves to have some relief one way or the other.
I love it. And we really are here to help one another. And again, whether it's faith-based or not, I mean, there's so many communities, whether you're a member of a church, you tithe, you do all this. There's ways that it maybe not just government-led, but we do need to support each other.
Right.
And I really do believe all boats float. That old adage, like everyone benefits. And if you're a person who lives individually and you think, oh, I don't want to pay taxes. It's for school. I don't have any kids in the school system.
Right.
Why should I care? I mean, my kids are all grown up, so those thoughts pass
Right.
through my brain
Right.
too. So, what would you say to somebody who's listening right now in Greenwich? I don't know if you know this, but we cut about $4 million out of our school budget. We only have 1 minute left, so you want to wrap it up with that?
You know, the only thing that I can say as quickly as I can possibly say it is I chose Connecticut. I was not born here. I was not raised here. I chose to move here to go to school. I chose to start my professional career here. I met my wife here, who is also not born or from here. And we want to raise a family here. And there are a lot of other people like me. I have friends across the country who say, I don't like it in Texas. I don't like it in D.C. anymore. I want to move to Connecticut.
Wow.
We have an obligation to remain attractive, not just for those here, but for those who want to come here and call it home.
That's right. Highly educated, motivated young people who, again, support everything. So, Corey Paris, thank you so
you.
much for being a
you.
guest, being in the studio with me, which is so much fun. I've got Lisa Hannock sitting. Do you have a point? Did you want to?
Well, I would say we still have a minute, but I.
We have 1 minute.
What I'm thinking in this conversation is what I always say is that public education it's a public good. As you were saying, we all benefit from it.
Yeah, everybody does, including real estate prices, which one of the most basics. But what we're doing is we're setting up the next generation to be well-informed citizens, and those are the people who can look at issues and, as Democrat or not Democrats, of course, that's a
Yeah.
Freudian slip there. Hopefully, we'll vote thinking carefully through the issues, knowing all the information that's out there. And there's a lot to know. There's a lot, reading the news for me is like, trying to drink from a fire hose
Right.
at this particular moment. So just staying up on what's going on is really important. So I've got to wrap it up. This is Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends. We've been talking to Corey Paris.